So today's video is sponsored by Eniba.com, which is a brand new gaming marketplace with over 20,000 digital products. They'll bring you the hottest deals in the market of any title, new or old, and they have an absolutely incredible Trustpilot score. So you can be rest assured you're going to get your stuff on time and your gaming will continue without a hitch, and they even offer a 24/7 live support, which is just an absolute lifesaver. Now, it's a great place to buy games for not just your PlayStation 4, Xbox or PC, but you can even get things like your PSN cards or your Xbox cards and a bunch more, just like the Amazon gift cards, etc. It's a great place to go ahead and check out, and you can use my code SUPERREBEL to get a 3% discount on your purchase. So what are you waiting for? Visit Eniba.com with the link in the description below. So now that the Spider-Man DLC has been out for a couple of days, I thought now is a pretty good time to just give my honest review on it and really how I felt about the whole character being implemented into the game, because of course we know that it wasn't like any of the other DLC drops. This character didn't have a story, but one thing that I did find relatively interesting is there's still more content than I actually thought in terms of you having the introduction to, of course, Spider-Man as a character, getting to know him via the cutscenes, etc. is actually a lot more than I did initially expect. Now, 4 days ago, I asked you guys as well, I think it was either on the day or the day after this DLC, on how you guys found it, and the vast majority of you said it's pretty much not as bad as you thought it'd be, and honestly I think I can relate to that as well. There are definitely a lot of flaws, and when I talk about flaws, I'm talking more about the smoothness, I guess you could say, of the character, and again, that's just because we know there are other games out there for this character and how well done that's been. Now, a few flaws that I want to address first of all though is, yes, the combat is good, and you know, if you were to compare it with Insomniac Games' combat, which I've seen a side-by-side comparison, then for the most part, the actual moves itself isn't the problem, it's more so how it feels as you playing the character. So literally how it feels with your hands on the controller, in my opinion, it kind of feels a little bit off. It doesn't feel as smooth as it could be. But then again, if you take a look at the entire game and all of the characters, technically nobody has really smooth gameplay, but I think for a character that's moving around a lot and being able to be as flexible as this character, then that's probably one of the biggest flaws, I guess you could say, because although the other characters don't have any different type of movement, this character really utilizes all of that stuff, so it's really easy for us to kind of pick up on those small segments, I guess you could say. But that's my 2 cents on that. Now, for the most part, as far as the web swinging and all that stuff kind of goes, again, it's one of those things that a lot of people did initially complain about, and it was a very simple thing on, okay, well, where does the web actually attach now? As far as we know, they did say they have essentially a glass ceiling, in the game. Again, this game's not been built around this character, so we kind of got to expect those small, I guess, nudges in terms of quality and realism when it comes down to the character. But for the most part, I guess you could say it's definitely a lot better than majority of people did expect. But for the other side of things, in terms of how this game went down with the claw raid as well, don't forget that was a big thing when this DLC dropped as well, and it really is a situation on this game really has still got a long way to go. It's just whether or not they're going to be able to stick at the game and really try and double down on certain things. So I didn't actually, in fact, still till this day when I'm recording this video, I've not actually completed the claw raid, and the biggest reason probably is just simply how glitchy it actually is. I've seen a lot of people talk about the fact that it probably should have been delayed because we wouldn't experience all of this stuff, and the small bugs that majority of us are experiencing is really what takes you away from the mode itself. It's not so much the mode itself, because that is really good. It's just the bugs and the glitches, just simply it's super hard to just sit through basically and get to the end without just wanting to not do it anymore. That's pretty much the situation there. So when people said about, you know, possibly delaying the game, or they should have delayed this mode, for the game until maybe the new year, even though it would have probably annoyed quite a lot of people, I think we would have been definitely been given a better chance at something more polished, because you have to take into account that it's not the team itself, because as far as their content and their work goes, that's really good, but the downside to it is so many people's hard work ultimately gets, you know, just put down the drain or toilet, whatever you wish to say, simply because there are these big publishers and whatever, or whatever agreements are in place that force a deadline, right, and a release date. So at that point, if it's like pretty much just up to basic standards in the sense of you can kind of play it, then as far as it goes to them, it's good enough to go. And that's the downside of it, because all the people that work on the game and do all of these cool things, it's their hard work that basically just goes down the pan. So that's something to take into account, especially with Christmas coming up around the corner as well. How long it's going to take them to actually fix this mode and the glitches that exist and the bugs, nobody knows. But if you take into account that people are going to be finishing work soon, etc, then honestly speaking, even if they do make an attempt and try to tweak a few things up until that holiday period, realistically, there's then going to be a drought on updates. There might not be, but as far as I'm concerned, and you know, just taking a look at everyone's kind of previous experience, it's more than likely that there will literally be no updates in that Christmas period. So that means in the new year, they'll then continue to work on it. Again, that's not actually being an official statement, that's just me using basic logic on what's potentially going to go down. But again, if you feel like you know better in that perspective and you feel like it can definitely be done quicker, then by all means do let me know in the comments below, because I don't know how that entire process works. I'm just taking into account how long it's taken them to fix the other bugs and glitches in a game. So again, it's one of those things to take into account, because that really takes a lot of players away from the game itself. So overall conclusion, I think the Spider-Man DLC is good. It's a lot better than we did expect. It's not as smooth as we would like. The combat is still good, because we know the combat in the game is great. But again, the downside to it is the character just feels stiff, you know, as a whole. As far as the outfits, etc, that stuff is cool. So again, that's just a point up, but also, does that really tie you into playing the game more? Absolutely not. It's more or less a content, and that's where we get to that claw raid, which could have been something really good in terms of drawing players in, but again, it's almost like an unfinished product once again, which just pushes players away from the game. But that's my opinion on it. Like I said, I still stand with the point that I do believe this game can be a big game, but it's just how quick of a comeback can it really make, because now the game's been out longer than a year, and although we're still stagnant with this, well, with the progression, there are more characters that are in the game. But now it definitely comes down to how many more characters can they add into the game that will have that same buzz like Spider-Man and Black Panther, but is going to kind of get that very global attention, I guess you could say, where it doesn't need to be somebody that is really into the comics, for example, and talking about characters that only appear there, but kind of like the generic heroes almost. Like, how many can they implement that's going to approach a wider scale of players to then really convince them to play the game? That's my fear, that's my, I guess, perspective as well on. I don't think it can really go that far, but I would love to be proven wrong. But guys, that's going to wrap up this video here. Leave your thoughts in the comments below. I'll see you in the next one. Till then, have yourselves a ridiculously amazing day, and adios amigos.